Hi, welcome back to Gaming at the Round Table, presented by Allen Knights Media. I'm Maverick. I'm here with Jojo and Crystal, and this is season 2, our first episode back for Gaming at the Round Table. If I sound a little caught off guard, it's because apparently we have a countdown timer, and when I was muted, the countdown timer prevented me from unmuting, so I was scrambling to get to the button. All right, so we're happy to be back. We took a little bit of a hiatus. Crystal and I went to Japan, which was really exciting, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that and the differences in the culture over there with gaming in a different episode. I will say the one thing that we saw that was kind of cool was that on a New York-sized building with a New York-sized poster on the building, many people tall. I don't know, it's probably like 40-foot tall poster. We saw a huge movie-looking preview of Elden Ring, the most recent expansion that was coming out. And it was really neat to see that as a mainstream thing in the city. It was a huge amount of real estate advertisement for gaming. All right. Moving on, we've got a lot of things to cover today. So let's start with what's happening recently. So in the MMO scene, we're eating pretty good. Final Fantasy XIV came out with a recent expansion that's being received pretty well. I've played it and Crystal has played it, and we used to play Final Fantasy XIV a lot. So it's been enjoyable. And Crystal, why don't you take it away with Dawntrail?
Well, with Dawntrail, we had 2 new classes introduced. We have Pictomancer and Viper. One is a ranged support.
Caster.
It's a support, right?
It does like the most damage in the game right now. They're going to nerf it so bad.
Yeah.
But yes, it does do some.
DPS.
They're taking their Apex inspiration where they're like, any new character, cracked or broken, nothing in between.
Because Viper is not on the same level as Pictomancer at all.
Oh, that's true. I have a theory about that. I'm going to hot take here for a second. I think they were worried that Pictomancer wasn't going to be as popular. And so they put more love into it mechanically, because I remember seeing Pictomancer and being like, I don't want to be a painter in a fantasy fighting game, right? Like, give me that dual blade Viper, give me the Paladin. Like, this is ridiculous. I thought it was silly.
Yeah, I still think it's very silly looking, but I have to admit that I will be fighting near Pictomancers and randomly see a Moogle pop up on the screen, and I'm like, maybe it wouldn't be that bad to play the class, like
it was cute. Moogles are cute little creatures for anyone that's not familiar with Final Fantasy XIV.
Yes.
They did more than that with cute creatures in this expansion.
They have some really, really cute creatures throughout the game. I don't want to say too much because a lot of it would end up being spoilers, which is why I have chosen not to make a review of Final Fantasy XIV. Just because if I were to try to make a review right now, it's just going to be full of spoilers. But I have to say, I think it's really good. It actually brought me back to the game. I haven't played the game in
months, at least.
I would say almost a year at this point. It's been a long time since I've been obsessed with Final Fantasy XIV. I've logged in almost every day since the expansion dropped. It's really enjoyable. Now, I will say, to get on the other side of it, right? I feel like this particular expansion has made it to where you can't think, you just have to dodge. And also, healers are kind of not needed in dungeons, which during dungeon bosses.
In that type of game.
Yeah. It is a big thing. There's an implication she's making that I'm going to go out and clarify.
Yeah.
Dungeons are what you do while you're going through the story and leveling up. They are absolutely necessary when you get to what we call the end game, right, where you're raiding and you're doing these like optional bosses and all that stuff, you absolutely need more than one healer. But I do agree that they feel like you and I were in a party and the healer died, and it was just like, I remember as the tank asking, hey guys, do you want me to die so that you guys can do this fight with me?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to just kill this thing and it's going to take 5 or 10 minutes? So, yeah,
And
I
I've
agree with you.
even, as a healer main, I have actually died because, again, this all came out not too long ago. So it was like the first or second time that I was doing it and I died. And the tank just soloed it. And I'm talking the whole party died at about 20% damage to the boss. So the other 80% damage, everybody else just sat there eating their food or playing on their phones or whatever it was while the tank did all the work. And as a healer main, I didn't really like that. There wasn't enough, I feel like, tank busters or tank damage. It was just mostly wide damage, so like they could heal through that. So as a healer, that's just, I feel like they need to balance that a little bit. But
Agreed, but not to get too into the weeds. It's still enjoyable. The content's enjoyable. The dungeons are great. The
so
new
great.
maps are beautiful. So without giving spoilers, you've got some maps that are very the opposite of natural and lush vegetation. And then you have the first few maps very clearly are these beautiful forests and variants on them, natural terrain. I believe it's inspired by Central America.
Yeah.
Some sort of indigenous culture. And it's gorgeous. So if you used to play Final Fantasy 14, now is a great time to come back and at least do the content. And if you don't like it after that, so be it. But something else they did notable was the graphics update.
It is very, for those of us that keep our graphic settings up, it is very noticeable. It looks it looks really, really good. I remember Maverick was like, I don't see a difference. There's not really a difference. And
I don't play with music, and I put my graphics down so that all the explosions and stuff don't distract me because I'm used to doing the end game stuff. So when I played the new expansion, I was like, "What's different?"
Meanwhile, my dragon character went from like basically all one tone, right? To now she's got, you can see every little detail on her outfit to the buttons and everything. It's insane.
720p to
Oof.
pump it up to 4K or something.
You're missing out, let me tell you. Especially on the music.
Yeah, the music is good. I do turn it up when I'm not in combat. So obviously it's great. There's lots to explore. It's hard to talk about without giving away things. But if you do like MMOs, there's been a drought in the industry, which is a whole different topic we can talk about on a podcast, and we might. Now's a good time to at least, get some water while you're stranded in the desert. All right, let's talk a little bit about another hot game right now, the First Descendant. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
So out of the three of us, I'm the one that kind of hopped into that one and checked it out. And I kind of stumbled on it by a happenstance. It is a free-to-play sci-fi co-op shooter is what it's officially labeled as. It's very hard to not associate it with other games in that realm. I'm going to do my best not to like directly say other titles at first. But I can say that the game feels very good. Visually is stunning, considering it is a free game. So it released on the 2nd of July, 2024. I played it probably 5 days after release, and I couldn't get into it. Downloaded the game, waited for a little bit, tried to get in, could not load in. So about 3 hours later, I tried it again, got in, got about 7 minutes into the tutorial, and then got dropped again. And couldn't play it again for another day. But because it was free to play, I didn't get overly frustrated to where some of these other games that have been releasing and have these massive problems that kind of like rub you the wrong way because you just dropped 60 upwards to 100 something dollars and it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a testament to the current situation with games in general. But I think they did the opposite of it, took it into consideration, went into full on maintenance mode. And then since that one day, I haven't had a connection issue. Not once. And that's about a week worth of playing. Now, the gameplay itself, again, is visually very, very good. I was truly surprised considering it is a free game. I'm kind of used to putting, when you hear the word free, it's kind of like a beta testing or something that's new, they're still working out the kinks of it.
Might I introduce you to our Lord and Savior gotcha games? Because
yeah. So like you pick up a game like that, you're not really expecting like top-notch stuff. The voice acting is very good. Again, the visuals in combat, very good. The one thing that sticks out to me that I truly found to be something that the game creator is next on. They deserve all the credit in the world for the speed that you can get into games, join parties, get into missions.
When speaking of co-op, I want to ask you about that because I've played the game for a very short period, and I do want to agree with you. It is beautiful. Ironically, when you first told me about it, I had seen a trailer for it. The music was magnificent. Oh man, such a good-looking game. And I was happy that when I finally tried the game on your recommendation, Joe, it was still stunning while playing. But you mentioned co-op. Are we able to load up with strangers quickly? Are you talking about like partying with your friends and that being fairly quick?
So from a clarity standpoint, I haven't been able to play with somebody that I directly know. But from the party system that the game has in and of itself, it never really crossed my mind. Whereas I've mentioned with other games, especially, and again, I'm not trying to call other games into this, but Destiny being the best example, where when you started playing the game, because you couldn't find people to play with, even publicly, it made the game almost drag to the point where it was just kind of, I'm bored because I can't meet up with people publicly. It's hard to find out like where my friends are. And it made the game a lot harder to get into.
You're lucky you got that far. You were just talking about this. When I bought Destiny, when it first came out, I pre-ordered it. And I couldn't get in like you were just describing. Except unlike the First Descendant, I bought that game. And after about 3 or 4 days of not being able to get in, I literally never played the game that I paid full price for.
Yeah. Considering, I think this is kind of like the Trojan horse for me for the summer because I think I saw one trailer not too long ago. I thought it looked nice, but didn't really pay much mind to it. And then I signed into my Xbox and it popped up. And I was like, hey, it's free. Let me give it a shot. Again, I had that little hiccup in the beginning and I was like, But to their credit, they apologized for it and they gave out free things as a sorry to the community, like an XP boost, some other little things that they gave you. I think it was like a backpack or something else. But again, they made that little effort that some of these bigger companies have kind of lost that. Whereas they're like, well, you paid for it, so.
I find it absolutely wild that 2 free-to-play games that we have talked about, Woowa. So,
I was trying not to mention it.
What is it? Wuthering Waves?
Wuthering Waves, yeah.
Wuthering Waves, sorry. I call it Woowa now, so...
W-U-T-H. What?
Right.
What?
Wuthering. Anyways, that and the First Descendant, both free-to-play games, comp their player base for, I don't want to call them mistakes because I don't really think they're mistakes. I think they just don't anticipate how many people are going to bombard their game, right? But they're server issues. But then you have games that you pay for, not going to name names.
Apex.
The freaking, yeah, I'm not going to name names. Not going to do it. Anyways, they didn't give me anything. Nothing.
Those unspoken people,
Those unspoken people. No,
direct competitors, yeah. Direct competitors in the genre that are very well established. These new free-to-play games are making content that is of similar quality, but doing the PR side of things way better.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to see that trend. Like, obviously, gaming industry, oof, that's not English. The gaming industry has issues with servers, and that's the de facto, right? New game comes out, if it's online, the servers are going to crash, period. It's going to happen. But it is nice to see the transition happening where, I'm sorry, like, we know here's a little reward.
They're learning from these other companies that are getting a lot of backlash. You know, I mean,
it's kind of like watching your older brother make a mistake. You're going to kind of go, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I use that example on purpose.
I drink this tea now.
But again, getting into like the game, playing with other people is almost instantaneous. I think the longest I waited to party up publicly was maybe 20 seconds, and that's from initiating it, loading to finding a group, and then starting the actual thing that I was doing. Even going from map to map, it's less than 10 seconds.
Are there healers? Like, is it a system where you have a tank and a healer, or is it mainly everyone's a shooter with some different abilities for the most part?
So from the characters that I've gotten access to, because again, I'm playing behind the paywall, not in front of it, meaning that I haven't paid for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So in total, I believe there's 20 different characters, and they call them Descendants. There's 20 of them, each one having a different skill set. From what I've personally played, the person that I picked is kind of the paladin tank where I can drop up shields and stay behind a bubble and things like that. There's another one that I played with that has like a poison acid type thing. And then another one that's just a speedster that uses electricity.
I played one that threw grenades that had like a vacuum effect. He seemed to be a crowd controller of some kind.
The options that it gave me starting off were 3 different characters. I chose, again, the tankish looking one. I believe his name is Ajax. But he looks like a knight. He's got the full armor with like horns and the whole thing. But playing, I did appreciate that the tutorial was under 10 minutes. That to me was a good thing because I think some of these new MMOs drag the tutorial out so much that by the time you actually play the game, and even a lot of gacha games do that, where they go through that, like, you want to sit there and skip. You're like, I know how to build a house. I know how to build a bunker. Like, just let me play the game.
Yeah, press X to jump. It's like, yeah, I did that. We're good.
That I think took like 20 seconds, and then you're playing, and then you have a grapple, and then you're fighting a boss. But what they do is they nerf it. And they literally say like, oh, this is a damaged version of a world boss.
So when you go see it, don't be dumb.
So when you actually fight it, it shows you how to actually fight it. Instead of just you drop in and you're like, that thing is big. Gank. So I think it again did very well with the community. It's been listening to the community as far as what people have been recommending. They're trying to implement things relatively quick. Considering, again, the game came out on the 2nd. As of now, we're recording, it's the 11th. And they've already put in patches and updates based on what they're hearing, which is another rare thing and mind-blowing that more games aren't doing it. They listen to their pro community, but they don't listen to the average player.
I think free games, I was going to say, are the future of gaming, but really they are gaming now. The biggest games, previous podcasts, I said all the biggest games are gotchas in some fashion. But I think really it's that the free-to-play model is just so lucrative that is gaming now. Yes, people still go out and buy titles that are single player only, and I'm one of those people. But by and far, when you try to bring up a game and you expect other people to have heard of it, it's probably a free-to-play game. Yeah. Or something with a free-to-play game-like model, right? So if I say Diablo, Fortnite, Minecraft, granted, there are various ways to get these games. Minecraft's a bad example. Sorry, that was a bad
Well, it's
example.
been around long enough that most people have it, so they don't even think about, did I ever pay for this game?
I don't condone stealing games.
He didn't pirate anything, just for clarity. He's had it for so long.
No, we actually have the physical disc for the
We do. I can defend myself if necessary. Embarrassing. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, most big games that people recognize now are free or very similar to free in terms of, how they play. Even Final Fantasy is a subscription-based game, but they offer you, I think now, instead of buying the game and then getting a subscription, I'm almost positive they say like, well, you can download and try it for free for like hours and hours on end. And eventually, if you get a subscription, great.
I'd like to mention, speaking of that, and this game, and I tried to avoid it in the beginning, feels very similar to a big title that is also free to play in the way that it functions, in the way that you build characters and collect things to make said characters, and that's Warframe.
Oh.
It feels very similar to that, and I played a good amount of Warframe, but I didn't feel like I got as into it. I don't know if it's just the feel of this game fits me a little bit better.
Well, it's also like 15 years old. Well, it's old.
Yeah. But I think story-wise and then character-wise, I think I like this one just a little bit more. I
definitely
think
like that they look
like
people, right?
Yeah. I think it was a little more spacey, alien feel to it, so I don't know that it stuck as much.
So while I haven't played much of The Descendant, I watched your review on our YouTube. What's our YouTube called? Owl Knights Media. So I noticed during your review, you show and talk a little bit about crafting the characters that you don't have yet. And that is a very Warframe thing, where you would get blueprints in Warframe for parts of a character. And then once you had the appropriate parts, you could then craft the actual character, which
it's
made more sense.
The same, if not the same.
It seems a little bit like, what's a good term for this? Gruesome when you're talking about the Descendant, the First Descendant, because those are people, whereas in Warframe, they're like machines, so you can craft different parts. But like, oh, why did they make me with my arms? Yeah, I don't know.
To talk about Soulframe as well.
Yes.
Which is a game that's being made by the creators of Warframe that looks really, really good.
Tell us a little bit about it.
It looks good.
It
looks great.
It's got nice bells and whistles.
What do you like about me? You're pretty. What else? What else is there, Gaston?
So it's a fantasy game from what it looks like. I'm not very good at explaining things, and you're always going to laugh at me when I do stuff like this. But, I mean, there's like, when you bring up their website, it shows basically a warrior of swords who is surrounded by deers. And then if you actually go and look at the media on there, you'll see like this really cool image where there's a normal looking deer, and next to it, there's like a fantasy deer, which is very interesting. But from my understanding, this game is supposed to be like a Warframe fantasy soul-inspired game.
Yeah, the soul-inspired part scared me initially when I heard about it, but they said it's just soul-like, but not the actual like mechanics or Warframe, but with a soul feel, meaning like I think a more medieval should have been their marketing toss out.
Yeah, fantasy, medieval fantasy for sure. But I think it's smart from a marketing perspective too, because people instantly recognize the Soul Frame aesthetic. The Soul Frame, what am I talking about? The
I don't know.
Souls games aesthetic. It's
The-
this dark fantasy, medieval-esque. Sorry, go ahead.
When you're looking at the website for Soulframe,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting dark medieval vibes. I'm actually getting very fantasy, very nature, very, I don't know, it's stunning. Visually stunning for sure.
Definitely agree that it's heavily fantasy in nature.
Mm.
But if you take a look at the actual human characters, they're wearing leather armor, they're carrying swords, some
Kind
of
of
them
like
are,
a Lord of the Rings vibe.
yeah, as far as the actual humans or
I
human-like.
just realized that one of their images, there's a man sitting in a chair. There's little soot sprites, from Studio Ghibli, from
Yeah.
he's got little soot sprites all
now that
over
you
near
pointed
his
it out,
feet.
that's adorable and doesn't mesh with the aesthetic at all.
I love it though. I absolutely
Maybe it's got kind
love
of like
that.
a Fable-ish fine. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Fable and the newer Fable.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might fit that if you're gonna kind of stick it to something.
That's actually so exciting. I'm definitely gonna be trying this game. They actually have on their website a place for people to sign up to play or possibly play early. You could be picked. So I signed up for that, hoping that
July 20th is coming up in a few days, and they apparently have advertised on their website for Soulframe that they're going to be at TennoCon. Tenno is a term from Warframe. So the 2024 TennoCon on July 20th, they'll also be having a live developer discussion about Soulframe. So if you like Warframe and their developers, that is definitely something you guys might want to check out. And that'll be at noon Eastern on July 20th. Soulframe Dev Stream. I'm sure that they'll have footage of it. And you can find out more about this game.
Mm-hmm.
I see the main character is going to be called Envoy, or the main characters, since there'll be multiplayer. I believe it's an MMO, I think. I thought I read that somewhere. I don't want to misquote that. But it's definitely going to be multiplayer because I remember seeing them say envoys. So I assume it's multiplayer.
Genre, massively multiplayer online role-playing game.
Okay. So you definitely can't make a Souls game that's an MMO. Like, that's just not going to... Hi, this is the starter town. You're going to get slaughtered. You walk out and die. I'm just running tutorial level.
So it says some of the media that are major influences on the development themes and environmentalism of that game are Princess Mononoke, Studio Ghibli, and Eco.
That explains the little ember things.
The little ember things. The little soot sprites.
Yes. I know English, mostly. Okay, we are running out of time because we don't want to go too far with our first episode. So if we rambled a little bit, it's because we're excited to be back for season 2 of Gaming at the Round Table, brought to you by All Knights Media. We do have at least one more announcement we absolutely have to cover, which is before we went on hiatus, we mentioned that we were going to start working on talking a little bit about our game development journey. We're still working out the kinks, but we've made a couple of small prototypes, and we're currently working on a prototype, and our goal is to have what's effectively like a game jam type game that I'm going to call prototypes for the next 3 months, because these are our birthday months. So we're going to have a little try marathon. So this is July, and by the end of July, we're hopeful to get our first prototype out, which we'll share with everyone. We're looking for game name ideas. I don't want to go too deep into the description because we're running out on time, but we're going to also have an August prototype that we'll try to get you guys' feedback on as well. And then, of course, the next September. And that conveniently aligns with all 3 of our birthday months, so it's pretty nice. So let me talk just a little bit about the first prototype. We're creating a little game where you're going to play as an owl, surprise, and you're going to be competing with some crows to build your nest as they try to collect the materials necessary that you also need for your nest. And they are going to be crows, and crows are going to crow. They're going to harass you and compete for resources. And it's going to be a nice, simple little game, and we're hoping to release it by the end of this month. So look forward to that and hearing about it. Anything else, you guys? All right. We told ourselves we would do better at waving. So again, this is the first episode back for season 2 of Gaming at the Round Table. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.